downtown Rotary.
Your bio or some version of your life is your way to talk. I would think after this many years, it just doesn't. With me today, I have Brent Ayers, who is an research assistant in our office. She's been with us for a while. Boris pulls data together, helps streamline internal policy and direct some of our external initiatives. So she is going to law school in August and finalizing that choice still. Yeah, I'm pulling for KU because I want her to stay close. Brent Ayers, everybody. Also with me is our new Public Information Officer, Katie Garceron. You recognize her from Kate's show, but now she's with us, and we're very excited. She's running our social media, and she's helping us communicate more effectively with the community we serve. Katie Garceron. Okay, can everyone hear me? All right, thanks, Henry. You are a good guy. All right, so I want to start off by talking about the SAVE program. Allison had requested that we talk about that, and then also our anti-human trafficking initiatives. SAVE stands for Strategies Against Violence Everywhere. Okay, I did not come up with the name, but I kind of like the name. And the idea was born out of conversations we had starting in 2018. So in 2017, which was my first year as the DA, we had 30 homicides in this community. I think you'll agree that number's way too high, it's unacceptable. And so we started talking with stakeholders, law enforcement, social service providers, the nonprofits, really anybody out in the community who had an interest in doing something to put a stop to that. And what came out of those conversations was the SAVE program. So I'm going to briefly talk about that. This is the mission statement for my office. I'll read it out to you. I do appreciate the opportunity to come here and talk about programs that we are working on in the office. Usually when I go out in the community, people just want to talk about cases, and that's fine, I understand it, but I'm also very limited in what I can say about active cases that are going on. So I appreciate this opportunity. Thank you, Allison. Okay, so what is SAVE? SAVE is a hub. SAVE coordinates our resources on the law enforcement side, our social services, community stakeholders, and the overall goal of the program is to reduce violence. That's it. Strategies against violence everywhere. It's as simple as it sounds. So how do you do that? Right? Violence has been with us probably since mankind, right? The underlying sources, the underlying causes are complex, and people can agree and disagree on what those might be. But here in this community, we have seen specific trends repeating themselves over time. And we didn't get here overnight. We do have problems with violence in this community. No more so than any other community of our size, right? But how do you attack the underlying issue? Well, from my perspective, in my opinion, we're going to start with early intervention. We're going to try and go upstream and identify youth, children who are in unstable situations at home, who are displaying concerning behaviors in the school, who are associating with known, I don't want to say known criminals, but people, kids, and young people who are engaging in criminal activity. Okay? This is our highest risk population, and we can intervene, and we can redirect some of that behavior and give them an opportunity to end up in a place like this instead of in jail or prison. Is worth our effort. Okay? So that's the idea of the program. And how it works is we have a project manager, Lindsay Anderson. She's housed in my office. Okay, this is really kind of the impetus of the whole program. She coordinates and oversees the daily development and operations of the program. But my job, first and foremost, is to prosecute cases. All right? So this is where things get a little bit tricky for me. My job is, when someone breaks the law, my office holds them accountable for what they've done. But we want to engage with people who are at risk. We want to engage with people who are vulnerable, with people who may end up breaking the law, right? We're going right into that population. So how do you do that without creating conflict, right? I don't get to sit down in someone's living room and tell them all these things, all these opportunities they have, and build a relationship with them. And then a week later, if they commit a crime, turn around and prosecute them, right? I've created a conflict for myself. Sorry, any attorneys in the room? Just me? All right, he knows what I'm talking about. All right, so the way we do this in practice is we have partnered with the Boys and Girls Club of Topeka, right? They have existing relationships with the schools, with everyone in the community to facilitate the execution of this program. And so the Boys and Girls Club houses the outreach coordinator, which is the person who manages the personal relationship with these kids and their families. So they're meeting with them in the schools, they're meeting with them in the home. They're helping direct them towards the resources that they need. And so we're able to maintain the program without creating a conflict that would prevent us from carrying out our core function, if that makes sense. Okay. We do have a new position that is being hired soon, and it's going to essentially replicate and assist the work of the current Service and Outreach Coordinator. That's a grant fund from KDOC, and the current position, House Boys and Girls Club, is funded by the city. So one of the other things I really like about this program is it is a true city-county partnership, and there are not enough of those, in my opinion. So this is really great. And then KDOC obviously is a state agency, so I'm excited about the direction we're heading. So what do we actually do for the kids? Up on the screen, you'll see some of the things that we have been doing and will continue to offer these kids and their families. And I say families because you can meet a kid in the school, you can find out what their issues are, you can do everything you want to for them. But at the end of the day, they're going to go home. They're going to go home to an environment that probably is not conducive to them making forward progress. I don't know everyone in here, I don't know all of your stories, but I'm guessing most of you, hopefully all of you, had a support system at home, had parents who were looking out for your best interests, had parents who were not overwhelmed, and who understood the basics of being an adult and caring for a child. Unfortunately, a lot of these kids are not in those situations. So it's not enough just to help the kid, we have to get in with the parents. And usually it is a single parent home, honestly. But we have to get in there with the parents and help them as well. One of my favorite stories from this program was a young man who we engaged in the services. He got a referral. We sat down with his basketball coach. We sat down with the school counselor and our service and outreach coordinator, met with him in the school. And right away, we started getting him into all sorts of extracurricular activities.
Mike Kagay, the district attorney of Shawnee County, Kansas.
Revolve around basic necessities like, do we have enough food to eat? Do we have clothing? Can my mom pay the utility bill this month? Okay. And this was a young man who, in his mind, he is the man of the family. He has to do something. He has to step up and take care of his family. And the way he was going to do that was by going and getting a gun and engaging in criminal activity. He had friends already doing that. And they were telling him, come on, this was the plan. Literally, we were a week away from him crossing that line. And because the program addressed the issues that he was seeing, and because he had guidance and mentorship and a system in place now, he has hope. And so he didn't make that decision. And he told us this, very frankly. So, in my mind, that is a huge win. And the more kids like that we can reach, the better the long-term health and stability and safety of this community. Okay. So here's some numbers for you on the screen. The most interesting things to me are that every single kid and family that has been referred to the program has accepted services. Every single one. No one I said, no, I don't need your help, I don't want your help. There's an overwhelming need here that this program is filling. And the schools have been fantastic partners. There's only so much they can do, right? Everyone's overwhelmed, everyone's overworked. So we need to rely on everybody together to get this done. The other thing that I think is good and worth mentioning here is that even though we have 11 kids who are already involved in the justice system at the time of the referral, those 11 have not reoffended. And we have had no participants in the program commit an offense and get involved since their engagement. So if the goal is to deter and redirect behavior, the program is working. And as you can see, we're in every school district now. Okay, any questions on SAVE before I move forward? That was a lot of information. Okay, seeing none, we will move on to human trafficking. It's my understanding in talking to Allison that you all are fairly well versed in what human trafficking is. Fair to say? So you understand that this is an issue that is present here in this community, it's present in the state, across the country. Law enforcement for too long, in my opinion, has dropped the ball in this area. Okay, that's not an all-inclusive statement. There are some agencies that do a really great job of it in making a focus, and they're having success, and that gives hope to everyone else. But from a law enforcement perspective, human trafficking is incredibly complex because you have a survivor who's gone through untold amounts of trauma. And that survivor is going to have difficulty remembering places, remembering times, knowing the identity of the people who have been hurting them. It's going to take a lot of time and effort to get that person in a frame of mind and in a place where they're even willing to engage in a criminal prosecution. Okay? So one of the things that we did was we went out to Denver because they have a pretty successful program out there, a good partnership between service providers and law enforcement. And so I wanted to see why that was working and how it was working. And out of that came the idea that we should form a task force and apply for a grant administered by the Office of Crime Victims, OVC, which is a subsidiary of the Department of Justice. And the idea is, instead of just focusing on law enforcement doing law enforcement things, let's partner with the victim service providers and let's change the focus so that it becomes a victim-centric trauma-informed model, a true collaboration, right? Because that's what's required. If we're ever going to build good cases, I'm speaking as a prosecutor, if we're ever going to build good cases on these traffickers and hold them accountable for what they've done, we have to make sure that our survivors are being provided for and taken care of. And that's why I appreciate this partnership with YWCA, Northeast Kansas. They have been amazing partners. We applied for the grant together. That took a lot of work just to get that done. And we're going to talk about that here in a second. Okay, there's a really cute dog on the screen, and I'm going to tell you more about him later. But he's part of our electronic scent detection program related to the execution of search warrants and criminal investigation.
Okay.
When you're looking for evidence, usually around what we call child sexual abuse materials, right? Child pornography is what I'm talking about. These images will be stored on electronic devices more often than not, and the offenders do a nice job of trying to hide them. And so when law enforcement goes in and they're looking for all these materials, they may miss something. But this guy up on the screen, his name is Goose. He has been specifically trained to detect the chemical odor that comes off of these objects. It's wild. I've seen it in person. It's really cool the way it works, and he's very good at his job. So, like I said, we went out to Denver. We did a site visit. We talked to them about their program.
Good boy.
And they said the first step, if you want to follow our game plan, is you have to launch a task force you have to get stakeholders at the table. So I came back here in 2021, and that's what we did. And we call it the Kaw Valley Human Trafficking Task Force. That's the acronym up there. It is a mouthful. But we call it Kaw Valley because we brought in Osage, we brought in Jackson, we brought in state agencies, we have federal partners. We wanted to make it more than just Shawnee County, because traffickers don't care what county you're in. They don't even care what state you're in, right? It's a business model for them. Okay. So, right now, before the award, our focus has been on sharing operational resources, game planning for how to run a sting operation with other agencies, raising awareness with law enforcement. So we've scheduled and we've conducted a lot of trainings, trying to get that awareness up, trying to help law enforcement understand the scope of this issue and how to see it, how to recognize it. Our special investigator, Brad Barrett, who works for me, I hired him in 2021. He focuses on human trafficking and related offenses. He's been appointed to the Attorney General's Human Trafficking Advisory Board, which is significant. And I'll tell you, it's not easy to change a law. We have any lobbyists in here, this club? Yeah? Maybe you guys can break it down for me. It's not easy to get a law changed, right? You have to know the steps, you have to build a lot of support, and then you have to have someone to really drive that through. Well, I learned early on that if I wanted to do anything related to a legal change around the area of sexual exploitation or human trafficking, the Human Trafficking Advisory Board apparently has a lot of say and how those things move forward. So I did have a proposal in 2021 related to, essentially the purchasing of sexual services in this state. Right now, it's a misdemeanor. It's a misdemeanor. You can buy a human being for sex, and if you're caught, it's a misdemeanor. And then my research showed that every other state in the country is the same way. So in 2021, I said, we're only fighting half the battle here, right? We're going after traffickers. Good, we should. What about the people who are creating the market for this business? What about the Johns? What are we doing there? Nothing. We weren't doing anything. And so the idea was to move from a misdemeanor to a felony and show everybody this is important. This matters. You know, let's ask those questions. Let's deter that kind of behavior. And it didn't go anywhere in 2021. There was no appetite for it. That same year, or maybe 2022, Texas actually accomplished what I was trying to do. So now Texas, it's a felony. So good for Texas. But we're working on it still this year. And I can tell you, I got my guy on the H-tab. They made that recommendation. So it's officially supported by the Human Trafficking Advisory Board that they make that legislative change. And I'm excited about that. We'll see what happens. And that's cause for hope. Okay, let's talk about the award. So on our end, we've received over $650,000 from the OVC, like I said. And what that's going to do is it's going to allow us to hire, in addition to the special investigator that we already have, there'll be a dedicated detective from the Shawnee County Sheriff's Office. And we're currently interviewing for a task force coordinator and an intel analyst. And those four will make up a dedicated task force. They'll be based in the sheriff's office. The three of those people will be working for me. And the task force coordinator specifically is going to be coordinating efforts between the YWCA and my office to make sure that the community and law enforcement is being adequately trained on these issues. So there's never been a grant like this in the state of Kansas. It's a big deal. We're very excited about it. I can't wait to get going on it. Like I said, we're doing the interviews right now. My goal is to have both those positions hired, have people up and running within the next 30 days. Okay. I'm not going to read this off to you, but the goals here up on the screen are indicative of the goals of the grant and the task force as we go forward. You can see on the law enforcement side, we want to be smarter in how we attack investigations. We want to get that intel and do things the right way. Work smarter, not harder kind of thing. That's the point of the intel analyst. We do want to make sure, like I said before, that everything we do is victim-centered. That's why we rely on the YWCA to make sure that we're doing this the right way. And again, we're grateful for that. Same thing with raising awareness. We're going to do an assessment with the YWCA of the region on human trafficking. And then we're going to take that task force that already exists and we're going to amplify and enhance those efforts, make it more efficient, more robust in how it operates. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about is Goose. I already told you guys about. This was a partnership between Operation Underground Railroad, which is a nonprofit. They actually put on a training that Brad had attended. He came back to me and said, I have to do this thing. They have these dogs. It's unbelievable what they can do. He had a really cute 10-minute PowerPoint that he made for me. And it was impressive. And so I said, yeah, let's take a look at it. So this talks about what was covered underneath the grant. But I've already told you guys, we have Goose in-house. He's doing a great job, and just in the last few months of 2023, this is what he was able to do to assist law enforcement in their efforts. He's also trained as a comfort dog, because it turns out they train all of these dogs as comfort dogs before they get the ESV training, and so he is the sweetest, most fun, he's a good boy. He's the nicest dog.
Good boy, good boy.
I've had a lot of dogs in my life. And since he can't be with us all the time, Brent actually had this idea, good job, Brent, to get a replica made of Goose. And now he's kind of like our unofficial office mascot. So when we have victims come in, specifically children, but really anyone that's feeling overwhelmed, dealing with trauma, we want to make sure they feel comfortable, they feel understood, respected, and supported. And so we've got many Gooses now. We get to hand out. So that is everything I have. What questions do you guys have? Yes, sir.
You talked about Goose, and you talked about the intelligence coordinator. What intelligence are you gathering? What does that look like?
Right, so the intel analyst, it has not been hired yet, but generally what an intel analyst does is they will come through the internet and law enforcement reports and all these different data points, and they start to form a picture of what's happening. They might look at a money journal and say, these records are strange, right? This says they're paying for this, but really that doesn't add up. Something's off here. Let's dig into that. Let's find out what's really happening. And that's when you get to that point, that's when you get to really build great cases, because then you're not relying on a human being who's been suffering and been abused and traumatized. You've already kind of built the case, and you can just have them step into it in whatever way they're ready to. That's the goal. Yes, sir.
So I'm going to make myself vulnerable, because if everybody else understood you and I didn't, I'm going to sound like a gay. But the dog,
Yeah.
it sounded like you were saying it could smell the difference between a device with pornographic material.
No.
Okay, help me. Everybody else got it. Okay.
That would be cool. That would be so cool. But he can't do that. He's a good boy, but he's not, super dog. So if you have a phone right now, or there's an SD card in that camera, maybe even this clicker, I don't know. These things are all finished off with a specific chemical in the manufacturing process, and that chemical emits an odor that he is trained to detect. That's it. So he can smell it. If you hide it in, under a bed or in a drawer somewhere, he will hit on it. That's what he does. Yeah, and it's fun to see. Yep.
Is there any linkage between the murder rate and human trafficking?
I personally, I'm not aware of a direct correlation. I have not seen it. I always look at the trends because I'm interested in those patterns, so I understand how we fight and prevent that as much as possible. I have not seen any kind of correlation. I don't get the sense that the traffickers are engaged in that level of violence. We do have a lot of violence around drug trafficking, and a lot of a lot of sex traffickers also are engaged in drug trafficking. So there might be that connection, but not for that explicit purpose that I'm aware of. I'm not ruling it out because, again, we're just starting the task force. If I come back next year, I might have a different answer for you then.
What do you need to do your job better?
Yeah.
Not that you're doing it bad, I'm
Yeah.
just in addition.
No, look, and you're right. And Brennan and Katie and everyone that works with me, they'll tell you I'm never satisfied, and I'm never going to say, hey, we're there, right? I'm always going to look for ways to improve, and the community we serve and the work we do is too important. So we're never just going to be satisfied. I can tell you this year, for the first time, I can say that we have adequate resources to do our job. For the first time since I've been in the office, this is the year we have adequate resources to do our job. So that's the first thing. The second thing is making sure we are educating the community about what's going on, right? And that's why I've got Katie here to help out. And that's why I'm here today talking to you guys, right? So the way it works is law enforcement can't do anything without the community. It starts there. Everything starts with this room, with your neighbors, with your friends, with your family. That's where it starts and ends. So the support, the buy-in, the help, that's it. That's what I need.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Mike, you said you were working on making these types of crimes process as felonies instead of misdemeanors, but there was kickback. What type of kickback do you get on something like that?
But you wouldn't think you would get any, but I had a sitting member of the House in a recorded committee session tell me, well, if it's between a consenting adult, what business is it of ours? I was almost speechless. I could not believe that's what I was hearing. And to me, it spoke to an ignorance of what's really happening, right? That's just an ignorant statement. You might say that if you don't understand what trafficking is, because sure, she's going to show up and she's going to smile and say, this is great, I want to be here. That doesn't make it true, right? And that's almost willful ignorance. I'm hoping that there's been some education since then. I'm hoping we can make that change. Yeah.
Two questions. My first question is, do you know if there is a bill in the legislature this year? Do you happen to know the bill number? I'd be very curious.
For this one?
For the misdemeanors and felony?
Yeah, it has not been introduced yet. As soon as I have that, you will have that.
Thank you.
Yes.
And my second question is, does Goose make office visits?
He will. For you guys, he will. Yes. You let us know. And I'll tell you, he's not housed in our office, but when he comes to the office, they all know. Yeah. Yes, sir.
What is the best way for us as individuals or businesses to help support the fight? I mean, is it monetary donation? Is it, what exactly is the best way that we can support the fight?
I'm not going to say donations are ever a bad thing, because you should completely support their work. support. There's a lot of good agencies doing important work here right now, and we are lucky to have them. But apart from the donation piece, the awareness, right? Knowledge is power. If you take what you learned here today and you go back to your business and you share it with people, you share it with your family, that's how we get ahead, right? If everyone leaves here today and they just think, well, that guy was whatever, right? I learned one new thing, whatever. You gotta take it and you share it. That's how we get ahead. Okay? Everyone here has a circle, everyone has a sphere of influence. You guys are all leaders, that's why you're here. Right? So use that. I feel like we have a responsibility to use that. So that would be my request. Yes.
You talked about the difficulty of legislation.
Yes.
A few years ago, there was Senate Bill 367 that was a revision of the juvenile code to make, instead of looking at young people with a negative juvenile, shift it around to the positive, and you are doing that with all the collaboration that is intended in that bill. So,
Yeah. Thank you.
it's impressive.
Thank you for saying that.
Good job.
Any more questions?
Mike Kagay.
Thank you so much, we appreciate this.
District Attorney.
Not an easy job. We appreciate you representing us, protecting us, and the support that you're giving us. Thank you so much. All of our speakers, we ask to sign a bookplate of a book that we give to Ross Elementary School.